Super exciting, a box has turned up I've been waiting for from Amazon. Sadly, it was in a bit of a mess. I would do an unboxing, but in all honesty, I've had a look in here. It's just all thrown in higgledy-piggledy. It really wasn't very well packed at all. There was a little bit of bubble wrap, but all the bubbles have popped out of it and it's just a bit of cellophane. Now, I will leave a link to this, to the seller that sold this to me, but in all honesty, I suggest that maybe you look to see if there's anyone else out there who's got a better feedback rating. Now, to be fair, the product that's in here is pretty robust, and most of this got through without being damaged, but I'm just gonna take it out and spread it on the table here and show you what we've got. So it's almost like being at a car boot sale. Now, trust me, when I open this up, everything is pretty brand new. It's not a used piece. And there's a pretty hefty dent in the side of the box, which caused a little bit of damage, but you know, this is pretty robust, as I say, so most of it is in good condition. So what have we got? It is a traditional cornmeal. It's from a company called Victoria. I think they used to be called Corona, and it says since 1939. And this cornmeal, I got this to make fresh masa, and I think it's probably going to be the perfect machine for making masa. Actually, let's be honest, I've used it already, and it is the perfect machine for me for making masa. It is super robust. It's one of those sort of things that you can hand down through the generations. This is the top model. There is a model just below this. I always think for the small amount, I think it's a handful of dollars difference, it's worth going for the better model. It has a larger hopper. Now, this is pretty much the only thing that came out sort of all crushed and dented. I've reshaped it and it's perfectly okay. There's a little bit of a dent in the side. Now, I've used this once to test it, and you'll see here on the screw thread already there was no rust on this at all. It still had the machine oil from the factory making process, and you do need to get that machine oil off, so just wash it in soapy water. But I think if you're going to keep this for many years, this sort of equipment, when you finish using it, heat up your oven, pop it in, obviously none of the plastic parts, just the metal parts. Don't put the handle in with the wooden grip on it. And just heat it up in the oven, and then when you take it out, it will be bone dry and it won't rust. Sure, you can treat the threads with a little bit of light oil, but I always find that these sort of bits of equipment, if you're going to keep them for a long time, it's important to dry them after every use. Now, I haven't seen the lower scale model, and I think the main difference is this one has a larger hopper, and I think some of the actual attachments are a little bit more robust. You've got the usual sort of clamp here, which will help it sort of screw down onto a countertop or table. There is a silicone or a rubber grip plate that will stop it from sliding around, but I would suggest also that you put something up against the underside of your table just to protect it from when you tighten this up. Now, this is not a stone grinding mill, it's a cast iron plate, two plates that go together. There's an auger in the center that's going to draw the corn or any sort of grain that you use towards these two facing plates. There is a little retaining frame that just goes on here. You can spin that tight. There are two sides, obviously, little threaded wing nuts. And you want to do these up very tight. They're not the adjustment. This piece here adjusts the tightness of these two discs, and there is a little locking nut on there. So what you do is you pop that in, do it up as tight as you want, and when you get to the point you're looking for, you just tighten this little locking nut to stop it from sliding. The crank handle is detachable. All you do is place it on the back end here, and there is a thread again. Just line that up. There's a thread here that you just tighten up to hold the handle in place. And then turning this handle, now what happens is the auger in the center will pull the grain down and push it towards the two discs at the front. And then the grain is forced along the channels that run in the disc and broken up into a powder or grit, depending on how tightly these two discs are pushed together. Now, to facilitate the grain or to feed the grain through, we've got this nice big hopper on the top here. You are supposed to fit on Before this part goes on, there is a guard that fits on here. And that is just to protect your fingers from the grinder and also to feed any of the grinds that come out of the top back down so they feed out the bottom. So it's quite a beast. There you have it. It's the Victoria corn mill. It's super solid, really quite well built. Now I've had a few sort of grinders like this in the past, and at the cheaper end they tend not to work that well. So I'm quite pleased that this Victoria has turned out to be as good as some of the reviews have told me. It really does a great job, and I think this would be perfect for doing cracked wheat. It would make really nice coarsely ground wheat flour. I'm not sure how super fine it goes. I got this specifically for doing masa, and that's a slightly wet corn that you grind into a paste so that you can make tortillas. And I'm going to be doing that on a video very shortly. It's very long-winded, so you'll have to check that out separately. I'm not actually going to use this grain mill in this video, but check out the Masa video. Check out the very old 1939, not this particular model of course, traditional corn mill. It certainly is well built, and I think this is one of those machines for life basically, as long as you don't let it rust out. Now, a little funny side story. I recently saw one of these in a museum here in Perth, Australia, and they had it, the lady told me she thought it was a meat grinder, and they do look very similar. I had to tell her, no, this is not a meat grinder, this is a grain grinder, but they do look similar, but you couldn't grind meat in this. It can only be used for doing grain. And when I explained that to her, she hurriedly made corrections to the notices in the museum, which was really fascinating because it just happened to be I'd ordered this one from Amazon about maybe 2 or 3 days before. So how bizarre is that? Would I recommend it? If you make masa at home, yes, I think it's the perfect tool for making masa. Most other options run a lot more expensive, and this works quite quickly actually. You can get through a pound of corn maybe in about sort of 5 minutes or so. It's not a lot of work. I really think this is worth investing in if it's the sort of thing you're interested in, and I will leave that link down to the Amazon supplier, maybe because Australia's a long way away, but certainly they need to get their act together on their packing. Fortunately, the piece of equipment itself is so well built, it made the journey. So if you like this, comment down below, let me know what you think. Be good. Join me for making masa in a very short while on Steve's Kitchen. See you then. Take care.